You know, have you ever really thought about the gold in a ring, or maybe a necklace? Its story isn't just about a mine. It's an incredible 3 billion-year journey that involves the birth of our continents, a planet-wide cataclysm, and a geological mystery that had scientists stumped for decades. So, to really understand where our gold comes from, we first have to solve a puzzle.
And it all kicks off with this number, 40%. Now, on its own, it may not seem like a big deal, but what this represents, it's absolutely staggering. Because we're talking about 40% of all the gold humanity has ever pulled from the Earth. Just think about that for a second. Every gold rush, every ancient treasure, every single modern mine across the entire globe. And nearly half of all of it came from a single location. That is a concentration of wealth that's just mind-boggling. I mean, how is that even possible? What on earth made this one spot so special? Well, that is the incredible mystery we are going to unravel today.
Okay, so this geological marvel is called the Witwatersrand Basin in South Africa. For more than a century, it has been the single most important source of gold in the world. And the question has always been the same. How did so much gold end up right here?
Now take a look at this. This chart breaks down the different kinds of gold deposits we find. See that massive blue slice there, placer, sitting at 40%? Yeah, that is almost entirely the Witwatersrand. It just dwarfs everything else. And that tells you something really important. If you want to understand the story of gold on this planet, you have to understand Witwatersrand. All right, so our first big clue comes from the geology itself. The gold here isn't in those classic veins you might picture. Nope. It's found in something that looks for all the world like an ancient, fossilized riverbed. Geologists have a name for this, of course, a paleoplacer deposit. The little bits of gold are all worn down and rounded, just like pebbles in a stream. And that means one critical thing. The gold didn't form here. It was washed in from somewhere else. So, around 3 billion years ago, there must have been some source, a mountain range, an entire landmass that was just unbelievably rich with gold, which then eroded into these ancient rivers. The mystery just got a whole lot deeper. Where did that gold come from? So how in the world do you find the source of a mountain range of gold that vanished billions of years ago? Well, the answer, the absolute smoking gun, is locked inside the chemistry of the gold itself. It carries a chemical fingerprint from the very moment it was created.
And that fingerprint is an incredibly rare element called osmium. Believe it or not, the amount of osmium found as a tiny trace element inside a piece of gold can tell you its entire life story.
And this just lays it out perfectly. On the right, you have your typical modern gold. It has very little osmium because it's been melted down and recycled through the Earth's crust over and over again, basically washing out that original signal. But then, on the left, you've got the Witwatersrand gold. It's completely different. It is loaded with osmium, thousands of times more. This is a pristine, direct fingerprint. It's telling us this gold wasn't recycled in the crust. It came directly from a much deeper, much more ancient source, the Earth's hot primordial mantle. And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. The science on this is absolutely definitive. As this research from 2008 points out, the chemistry is incompatible with normal crustal processes. The only way it makes sense is if it came from the mantle. The evidence is clear. This gold is a direct message from the planet's deep, fiery past. Okay, so now we know the what and the where. Primordial gold straight from the deep mantle. But we still need the how. And to figure that out, we have to travel back in time to reconstruct the scene of the crime. About 3 billion years ago, on a very, very different planet Earth. This timeline shows us exactly when our story is taking place. Look at that point around 3 billion years ago, 3GA. This was a totally unique time in our planet's history. The mantle hit its maximum temperature, a thermal peak, hotter than any other time before or since. And at the same moment, the whole way tectonics worked was changing. It was a moment of massive planetary transition.
And that transition created the perfect storm, a unique recipe for a giant gold event. You had a hotter mantle, which could melt and bring all this osmium-rich gold way up closer to the surface. You had a totally different kind of tectonics, run by huge mantle plumes, not the plates we see today. On the surface, the atmosphere had almost no oxygen, and with no plants on land, erosion was just ferocious, stripping minerals from rocks like crazy. All these unique conditions came together at one moment in time to create the single largest gold endowment in Earth's history.
But this brings up a pretty obvious question. If this huge event dumped so much gold into the Earth's crust,
Why is Witwatersrand the only place we see this kind of insane concentration? What happened to the rest of it?
The answer is, the rest of it got recycled. Once that initial motherlode of gold was sitting in the crust, modern plate tectonics took over. And for the next 3 billion years, geological processes acted like a giant planetary-scale refinery. The crust was pulled down, melted, and reformed. Fluids flushed through the rocks, dissolving the gold and spitting it back out somewhere else in smaller, more spread-out deposits. This is where most other gold deposits, the ones with that washed-out osmium signature, come from. They're like the great-great-grandchildren of that original giant gold event.
So why did Witwatersrand survive all this planetary recycling? It was just exceptionally lucky. The basin formed on what geologists call a Craton, which is an incredibly old, thick, and stable piece of a continent's foundation. Think of it like a geological vault. While other parts of the crust were getting churned up and remelted, this specific area stayed put, locked away, preserving its unique 3-billion-year-old treasure.
So, we've solved it. A giant gold event on a young, hot Earth, followed by billions of years of recycling, with one pristine deposit saved by pure chance in a geological vault. But hold on. There is one final twist to this story that really puts everything into a new perspective. Take a look at this number. It looks impossibly small, right? 0.000007%. What could that possibly be?
That tiny fraction, that represents all the gold humanity has ever managed to find. Everything we've ever mined, plus all our known reserves, adds up to less than 1/1,000,000th of the gold scientists estimate is actually out there, just dispersed throughout the planet's crust.
And that just leaves us with a final, tantalizing thought. The story of gold isn't just about the past. It's about a huge, hidden treasure still under our feet. We've figured out that almost all the gold we know is just the recycled echo of one giant primordial event. So if we've only found a tiny fraction of that echo, it just makes you wonder, doesn't it? How much of the original motherlode is still out there, locked away, just waiting to be discovered?